I think you noticed that with rising temperatures, seasonal shuffle, and weather changes, people are facing challenges they've never faced before. Wait, this is not a video about climate change. Well, maybe a little. But with so many changes, it's amazing to see a group of winemakers which are dedicated to roll with the punches and bring some innovation to the table. Today, we are going to be talking about a Swedish winemaking. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Sip and Wine, where we explore rare grapes, fun wine stories, countries which you've never heard before that make wine. I am giving you an approachable way how to learn a little bit about wine. So let's buckle up and prepare yourself to learn about Sweden like never before. But before we dive into the Swedish winemaking, let me introduce to one wine which I grabbed in the liquor store this week. It's from producers from Emilia-Romagna, Pandolfa. It has super rich history. It's a fourth generation of the winemaker. It's small winery, just has 90 hectares of farming land, and it's not just wine, they are growing olives as well. This wine is 100% Sangiovese di Romagna. It's super approachable, medium bodied, it's delicious. And actually I went for this wine because of the label. Super fun, right? Leave in a comment what you are drinking tonight and let's take a deep dive. Cheers! Sweden is known for its super approachable cool furniture like IKEA, cars like Volvo, and pop music like ABBA. But in recent years, it's making boom in the wine. The last time I was talking to my colleague about this, and he was super confused about Sweden making wine. And he was like, how is that possible? We can thank for this to climate change. Let's talk about history of Swedish winemaking. While winemaking in Sweden does not carry so much tradition like France or Italy, historically, the northern latitude and the cool climate in Sweden gave a lot of headaches and a lot of challenges to grow wine and to the winemaking. However, evidence suggests that the winemaking in Sweden dates back to medieval times, mostly for religion purposes. But first, let's talk about the Vikings. Have they been wine drinkers? The last evidence which was found says yes. Don't forget to check out my video about the meat. It has a little bit of history about the Vikings as well. While Vikings were known for their drinking habits and lavish drinking of meat and beer mostly, recent discoveries suggest that they might dabble into a little bit into winemaking as well. Archaeologists actually found a grape near Denmark, which suggests that Vikings were making wine. For Vikings, the wine as the meat was a symbol of power and wealth, and the wine were drunk by the leaders. Now let's jump ahead to the 17th century. Sweden saw a lot of figures trying to push the wines and trying to push the winemaking. For example, King Carl XI and his successors pushed a new winemaking methods, a little bit of innovation and new grapes, which they were hoping that these tools are going to help people make grapes. But unfortunately, a chilly weather and a little bit of know-how did not make this successful. Then in the 19th century, the winemaking faced the challenges of imported wines. People started importing to Sweden, and winemakers, as in every other countries, started to replacing the wines with another crops. In 1917, Systembolaget was born, which is basically a government body which is influencing the selling of alcohol and other rules for making wine and making booze. Unfortunately, only wineries established before 1917, before the birth of Systembolaget, could make wine. That resulted that many wineries had to close the door and just went out of business. Then in 1933, Systembolaget said the beverages made from berries and fruit cannot be called wine anymore, which was another blow for the industry. The hope rise in the 90s. A new technology, new grapes, new winemakers came into play. The green light was given to winemakers to establish the wineries. Nowadays, they have over 30 winemakers, and some of the wineries are getting into a large scale of winemaking, which is amazing. Where exactly is Sweden? Sweden is in Northern Europe, on the Scandinavian peninsula, nestled by Finland on the northeast. Then we have Norway on the west, and then we have a Baltic Sea on the south. While the countries like France and Italy are facing their own challenges with the climate change, we can see a rise up in Sweden for the winemaking because of the climate change. It's fascinating to see and to read on different websites, which you can see the links below about Swedish winemaking, how these producers are facing the challenges and they are evolving and they are bringing innovations to the table, and they're coming from a small scale producers which are evolving to bigger players in the wine industry. But now let's go back to the location and let's talk about 4 different regions where Swedish people make wine. We have 4 appellations in Sweden, and first one is Skåne. Then we have a Gotland, Stockholm Archipelago, and Dalarna. First up, we have Skåne. Skåne is appellation located on the south of Sweden. This appellation has the mildest temperatures and it's well suitable for winemaking. This appellation does benefit from the proximity to the Baltic Sea, which makes the temperature more approachable, and there is a little bit of wind and it's a little bit warmer. Next, we venture to the Gotland, which is the biggest island in the Sweden, and it's located in the Baltic Sea. Here, winemakers benefit from the maritime climate. They are making mostly crisp wines and sparkling wines, which benefits from sunny microclimate and limestone-rich soil. Let's not overlook Stockholm Archipelago. This appellation is a little bit northern in Sweden. It does benefit from a rocky terrain and a little bit of coastal breezes. This appellation is basically the proof that delicious wines come from the most unexpected regions. Last but not least, Dalarna, which is in central Sweden. It's one of the biggest regions. It has a lot of sunny days and great soils, which makes a great wine. Okay, now let's talk about the grapes. Sweden has a quite innovative approach to the grapes. They do kind of grow like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, like Pinot varieties, but they do have their own varieties for a specific reason. These varieties are called Piwi varieties, which is basically a crossing of Vitis vinifera with a hybrid. These crossings come from Vivarais Sido in northern Italy mostly. These grapes are super important because they are great for the Swedish climate and they are resistant to diseases. But why they are really using these varieties if the climate is changing? Why they are not using Pinot varieties like they started using in England? It's really interesting because the Piwi varieties do not require any chemical treatment. Therefore, the agriculture is sustainable and friendly. So therefore, they are not compromising the quality of the grapes, which is fantastic. But again, they are growing their own varieties, which are mostly locally known. But I mean, there is some advantages and some disadvantages. If they don't have to use the chemical treatments, why not? Words are always changing and they can use whatever they want, and I feel like the grapes are delicious either way. For example, in my country we do have our own grapes which are mostly locally known, but they are really slowly coming to the market and people are getting to know them, right? Wine is about exploring and learning new things. In addition, what I was talking about Piwi varieties and that they don't have to use a chemical treatment, they are super adaptable to the Nordic climate. In Sweden, the weather can go down to minus 25 degrees Celsius, which can be difficult for many wines. But these Piwi varieties are able to survive in this weather. But they do have one thing which they are struggling with. It's a bad cracking and the early spring frost, right? So we will be talking about two Piwi grapes, one white and one red, which are super famous in Sweden. First, let's talk about Solaris. Solaris was developed in 1975 in Germany. Solaris is like a national grape in Sweden. Solaris is a white grape which make wines with a lot of green apple notes, tropical fruits, and lemon, and a little bit of honey. This grape has a higher mast. It is used most of the time for sparkling wine in other countries like England, but in Sweden they do use it for making white wines mostly. The wines are concentrated and strong, and it has a nice body. It's usually ranging from 13 to 14% of alcohol, and a lot of times winemakers do blend it with the different grapes as well. Another popular grape is called Rondo, and it's mostly planted red grape. It was created in 1964 by Professor Kraus in Czechoslovakia. The grapes are super dark with super concentrated red, with a lot of harmony, a lot of red and black fruits, medium bodied, medium tannins, and long finish. Let's talk a little bit about 2021 vintage, and let's compare it with the countries as France or Italy. So in 2021, Swedish winemakers, it was one of the best vintages they've ever seen. A lot of the new winemakers, they do have new plants, which they cannot really compare with other, but this is what we have. This is what we have to work with. So in 2021, it was a lot of sun, no spring frost, regular rain, and warm conditions. So the wines had a lot of things coming to them, and they were fantastic. In comparison, 2021 vintage in France, it was not that great. There was a lot of spring frost, a lot of flooding, a lot of heat damage, super hot vintage, which is not great for wines. For some of the countries and for some of the producers, they lost almost 70% of the product, which is devastating. And it's devastating for a lot of small producers. But let's not forget, again, Sweden is a really young wine country. They do not know how the weather patterns goes, or they don't have so much information about it. The wines are really young, and they do have a lot of things coming and a lot of great vintages, hopefully. Now let's talk about two wineries, one really micro and one little bit bigger in Sweden. First, Tora Vineyard. This winery is located on Bjäre Peninsula. The owners are Oberg family, which purchased this land in 2014. So Oberg family built a small winery, which was initially just 300 plantings of Pinot Noir. Nowadays, they do have a lot of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. They are starting to grow in Gamay and Chenin Blanc as well. So this winery is mostly to the traditional Vitis vinifera grape, and they are doing great. They do have two winemakers, both from France. Emma grew up in Avignon in a Swedish/France family, and she studied winemaking, and she worked in houses like Chateau 16 or Domaine de Plougastel. Then we have a Romain who grew up in a small place, Bourgogne, in France. He had a little bit of different path. He was mostly winemaker in the south of France. He is the one who brought a little bit of biodynamic winemaking into the Tora Vineyard. Bjäre Peninsula It's well known for its winemaking tradition, proximity to the sea, and a fertile land. In the Tora vineyard, the grapes are hand harvested, fermented, and then they are put into a Swedish and French oaks. Langmyre Winery is located on that biggest island, Gotland, in Sweden. It is located in the middle of the sea, so it does have a lot of sea breezes. It has a lot of sunny days, and what's interesting, it has a limestone soil, which is really similar to Chablis or Champagne. The Langmyre Winery is a story of two people who fell in love, a winemaker from Salerno and his Swedish girlfriend. Guerra is an Italian winemaker from Salerno who was making wine in the south of Italy, and then he moved to Tuscany, where he met his girlfriend Emma. Emma is originally from Sweden, and they were talking and they were like, well, we want to make wine, but we don't really know where to go because the weather is as it is. They were like, let's go a little bit north, but they never thought that they would end up in Sweden. Today, the vineyard is tiny, just 5 hectares, and it is mostly planted to 5 Piwi varieties. The last thing I want to talk about is challenges in Sweden and in Swedish winemaking. While the winemakers have so much going on and so much good things coming to them, they do have a couple of challenges which have to be brought to the light. So the winemaking cycle in Sweden is a little bit different than in France and Europe. It's a big challenge during summer because they do get so many sunny days that the wine grow quickly. Photosynthesis is super strong. So the winemakers are still trying to figure it out, the new balance in the growing cycle. Now, after they faced the challenge of growing environment, then there is another challenge, how to get the wine into our glass. That's the reason I couldn't get any Swedish wine. And I don't think you can get any Swedish wine unless you're in the country. But what I'm talking about is about the Systembolaget, which is the body which is influencing all of the sales in Sweden of the booze. In Sweden, the only way how you can get the wine is in a couple of those small liquor stores from Systembolaget, but the wineries are forbidden to do a direct sale, and you can get the wines straight from the wineries, or you can get the wines sometimes in restaurants. The last thing they're challenging is that the cost of production is super high, and the wines, a bottle, 750 milliliters of bottle of wine is more than 20 euros, which is super expensive. Okay guys, this is all from me for tonight. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy it. Please leave a comment what you are drinking tonight. What would you want to see on my channel? Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.